so thankful to be a part of AHS and to be alive in this day and time and here to support others as we're all scared of what's going on. But I think this Thanksgiving, I'll be more thankful than ever for just being with family and friends on Zoom.
This year, I am especially thankful to still be able to see and access all my students every day, even if it is only for 45 minutes. And I'm grateful to still do the job that I love so much. Happy Thanksgiving.
One thing that I would say I'm super thankful for is just that I'm going to be able to spend the holidays with my family and that we're all going to be together. Even though we have been together for a very long time because of COVID, it's really nice to be able to spend it with them.
Welcome back, Patriots. It's CJ here with your Thanksgiving-themed broadcast. This week, we'll get a look at Chef Poindexter in the kitchen cooking up a traditional Thanksgiving dessert. We'll also get to hear from a few of Patriot Productions students who competed in the annual adrenaline competition. Finally, we'll get to hear from Dr. Howard on returning to school. But first, here's Eve with a couple announcements.
Thanks, CJ. A message to all students who plan on participating in a sport this school year. Athletics this year will be divided into 3 different seasons. The first season will be winter sports, and those will take place during this year's first semester. Fall sports will take place during the second season in the second semester, along with spring sports, which will be designated as the third season. To be eligible to play a winter sport during first semester 2020, you must have passed a minimum of 5 credits from the previous 2020 spring semester and be currently enrolled in a minimum of 3 credits. To be eligible to play a fall or spring sport during the second semester 2021, you must have passed a minimum of 3 credits classes from the previous 2020 first semester and be currently enrolled in a minimum of 3 credits. If you have any incompletes in the gradebook, they will not be counted towards VHSL eligibility, so get your work in. The deadlines for these grades are as followed: December 18th for winter sports, February 19th for fall sports, and April 16th for spring sports.
I am thankful for, of course, my friends and family. They've been so supportive of me moving back to Charlottesville and have been so ecstatic for me to be welcomed into such a supportive school community. And I am thankful for my dog who sits by my feet every day while I teach my students. And I am, of course, thankful for my students. I do what I do because of you. I love my job because of you. And I am really excited for where we will go the rest of this school year. I appreciate your hard work, and I appreciate you advocating for yourself and asking questions and getting help when you need it, especially in these virtual learning days. So thankful for health and thankful for this year of learning and growth. I think for everybody, it's been a year. So I think we've all learned a lot about ourselves. And if we can look at a negative situation and kind of flip the switch and think about how we've grown, then we can see the blessings.
I'm grateful for many things. I think looking back at the last 8 months, number one, I'm grateful I don't have to watch any more political commercials. Number two, I'm grateful for the students that have their cameras on. So I'm not sitting for 6 hours talking to black boxes and myself on a screen. No, in all seriousness, I'm grateful for the blessings I've been given in life, my family, my friends, many of which who've reached out over the last 8 months and almost in a moment of serendipity kind of knew when I needed a little pick me up or need a little help, and they just texted or called, or we just ran into each other. And I think we can't forget that we're all fortunate, and maybe this year more so than others, we've been reminded. And so not the least of which is the job that I get to do. And I'm a teacher, and the chance to work with young people whose unique outlook, energy, and attitude can be infectious. And it has kept me young, despite the fact I don't have any more hair.
Attention seniors, time is running out to take advantage of the group discount rate for your senior graduation apparel, announcements, class rings, and caps and gowns. Visit jostens.com or call 1-800-JOSTENS to place your order as soon as possible. Payment options are available. With Albemarle County heading into Phase 3, schools are slowly beginning to expand in-person learning in a safe and controlled environment. With more on this, here's our very own William with Assistant Principal Dr. Howard.
So I think we should just like jump right into the questions.
Sounds good.
So for the first one, so how does it feel to have the students back in the building, to have them back at school?
It's really nice to have them back. It's exciting. I think some of them are a little surprised at just how enthusiastic the adults are to see them, because we're just like, no! And they're like, look, Dr. Howard, I haven't seen you in 8 months. Why are you this excited? And it's like, because we love you guys and we love seeing you. And so it's very exciting. But then it's also kind of the flip side of the coin is that the responsibilities are different. And so we have to make sure that we are checking all the boxes to keep everybody safe and on track with their learning.
What are the safety precautions that you guys put in place to keep the teachers and the students safe in the building?
First thing, every person who enters the building gets their temperature checked. The adults are responsible for checking their own temperature and signing in when they come in the building. Students, they get their temperatures checked by adults, and everyone wears a mask. The students have actually been phenomenal with wearing masks. They're, every now and then someone will forget to put it back up over their nose after they, had a sip of their water. But most kids are doing a really, really good job of keeping their masks on all day long. Everyone is at least 6 feet apart. In some spaces, they're even, 10 spaces apart, 10 feet apart or more. Building services has changed some of their processes with things called like building flushing, which is basically just moving air through the school in a different way, so that any potential pathogens are just kind of hanging out in the air. So that's kind of that's a building services thing that kids and teachers may not necessarily think about, but it's going on all day. Hand sanitizer and wipes all the time when we hand out breakfast and lunch, because they're free right now for all kids. Anybody who has any possible sign of, like, say, a sniffle, I mean, even if it's just, we think it's allergies, right? The nurse consults with them. She'll come to them and talk through like what's been going on. If there's even a hint of anything, then a student gets sent home and, and encouraged to have a conversation with their doctor.
It seems quite like complicated, and like there's just a lot of stuff to do in between keeping them like safe and like distanced and not quarantined, but like, safe from each other, and also having them in that space where they can learn together as if they were actually like in a normal class like last year.
Well, see, that's what's interesting, is that a lot of kids don't necessarily realize that in this stage, in stage 3, sometimes we'll joke about calling it COVID school, because we're not quite in like regular school yet. So like, they're not actually, kids who are in the building are not moving from class to class. They pretty much sit in one place all day long, which, if we're being honest, so are most of the kids who are virtual at home, right? They're sitting on their bed all day long doing their work, right? So in this case, they just happen to sit in a place that has a little bit more reliable internet, and typically, except for yesterday when the power went out in the afternoon because of all the wind. But, that was a fun little challenge. But and then they get help from administrators and learning coaches to kind of work through their assignments that they have now. Anything that they're missing from last year, we help them with that too.
So the learning coaches that are here at Albemarle High School are here to support kids, to help them get caught up, to help them come up with a schedule so they can get their work done, to support them if they need help, they have questions, and basically just to help the kids get taken care of.
I support them in any way possible from the standpoint of getting online, making sure they do have their internet connection, as well as if they need help with certain subjects, or working with catching up on last year's work, and just keeping them busy and making sure they stay focused. And these kids here are just awesome, wanting to learn, and it's been a true pleasure, and it's an honor to be able to work with this program that we have here.
A good team. We have a great team of adults here, and I think that a lot of kids and maybe even some teachers don't necessarily realize what goes on in the background, which is good, because then it means that they're able to focus on learning, on teaching and learning, and that's what we really want people to be able to do.
And I think we're doing really well in comparison to what we were at the beginning, because we weren't sure what we were in for, but it's worked out to where it's now the students are really producing quite a bit of work.
What's next? What do you guys think that phase 4 is going to look like? Do you guys like know, like when phase 4 could start? Is that like a
I think after Christmas, the conversations about what stage 4 will look like, those will kick more into gear. But yeah, right now we're definitely focusing on getting stage 3 as good as it can be.
Recently, members of the AHS Advanced Filmmaking class participated in the annual Adrenaline Film Project. I met up with Kira, Courtney, and Tamur, who won the coveted jury award with their original screenplay.
What can you tell us about the Adrenaline Film Project and how does it work?
Normally, it's a 72-hour film festival, and you get there, you get a genre and a prop and a line of dialogue that you have to use in your movie, and then you pitch or you write your script in the first few hours, then you pitch it to the mentors, and then the next day you have to film it all, and then the day after that you edit it. So it's pretty much like you just create this 5 to 10 minute movie in the span of 3 days. So it's definitely adrenaline is the name of it. There's definitely a lot of adrenaline going on. But it's really cool to, be able to work with the mentors. Like, these are people from Hollywood that are, sparing some of their time to come back and teach the high school teams and teams at UVA. So it's a really cool opportunity.
Tell us about this year's competition. How is it different from previous years?
This year it was more script based. So throughout the entire 48 hours, instead of having to do, as Kira said, film it, pitch it, and like edit it all, we just had to write the script, which is the foundation of the films. So it was difficult, and we still, stimulated some of that adrenaline that Kira was talking about. We were working for the entire 48 hours, but I think it was much more a focus on the story and less of like the cinematography, which is like the previous competitions.
This year, instead of filming our script, we did a read-through at the end of the 72-hour period. We had some like legitimate Hollywood actors that came, and some of them being Courtney, I'll let you do that. But
Andrew Howard, who was in Tenet by Christopher Nolan, and we had Jonna Hamblin, and I couldn't name any of her movies, but she's incredible. I'll tell you that. And Brighton Shabrino, Tyler Posey from Teen Wolf, and Michael Rooker from Guardians of the Galaxy, actually.
So yeah, those were some of the actors that were there at the table read. It was a really awesome experience. So instead of getting to film it and edit it this year, we had a meetup with the actors, and they read it through once. We gave them back notes on, some things we'd like them to change, and then they read it through again. And then that was recorded and broadcasted a few days later. So that was kind of like our showcase of the table reads instead of the actual films this year.
What can you share with us about the screenplay you wrote that won the jury award?
So our genre was coming of age, and I actually really enjoyed that. We were kind of hesitant about it at first. We kind of were hoping for like more of a horror or like thriller, because I feel like that's what we've done in the past, and we're very comfortable with that. But I think it really played to our strengths, and that was good short storytelling that like satisfied character development. The jury award was actually an accumulation of like all those producers, script writers, and people just involved with the competition. And so they all voted, thankfully, on our screenplay, which was so exciting because I feel like really that's the most validating award, more than the mentor award, which was just chosen by like one mentor, and the actress award, which was just given to one of the actors reading through. So the jury award was all those opinions, and I feel like that was awesome for us.
Yeah, so our script was about this girl who wants to go on a date with this guy, but her dad forces her to stay at home and watch over her grandma who has dementia. And so when the boyfriend comes over, he kind of just like walks in, and then the grandma sees him and recognizes him as her old boyfriend from like the 40s or 50s. And so she's just like, oh, it's you, Joseph. And then he starts playing along with it and pretending like he's actually her old boyfriend. And so it's just like this kind of touching, sweet moment. And the main girl, she's just sort of like, oh, you don't really have to do this. And he's just like, no, it's totally fine. Like, this is awesome. And like, we should be giving your grandma like one last like happy memory of him. So it was a really sweet and touching story, and we're really proud of it. So
Do you guys have any future plans for the script?
Yeah, so we reached out to our actors. We're gonna have 2 high schoolers obviously playing the main characters, and then Mr. P, our filmmaking teacher, has a connection with an older actress who's gonna come and play our grandma. So once we get the shooting schedule already, it looks like we're gonna start filming in mid-December. And it should end up being, you know, 5 or 6 minute. We might extend it a little bit just because there were script requirements for the competition, but it might, you know, end up being around like 10-minute long screenplay or short film that is we're gonna film that in December and hopefully be able to showcase that at the end of the year.
With Thanksgiving being in a couple days, Chef Poindexter was kind enough to let us in the kitchen to make a sweet treat that you at home could make as well.
Hey everybody, Mr. P here. It's Thanksgiving, and if you're anything like me, that means just one thing: dessert. Unfortunately for us, Chef Poindexter's over at school, and he's going to show us how to make an apple spice cake with a brown sugar glaze. Let's go see.
All right, so we're going to get started. I've already weighed out all of my ingredient, and we will include the recipe so that you guys can participate alongside. Starting off in the mixing bowl, I have my butter, my granulated sugar, so the white sugar, and some lemon zest. And so step 1 you're going to want to do is cream those things together. So I'm going to take these 3 different items and try to make them into a smooth paste. The recipe says to add in all the sugars, but I'm going to hold back on the brown sugar for a little bit because brown sugar has moisture in it. It has molasses added. That's why it's brown. And so what I don't want is this to break down, because once these things start to separate and liquid comes out, you can't put it back together. All right. So if you're going to cream these, you're going to want to do it on high. So slowly get it up to speed and then crank it up. And this definitely works best with butter that's room temperature. So this has been sitting out for a while, but it is still a little bit cold. You don't want to melt the butter, so don't do that. All right, now that I can see that it's kind of pulled together, I am now gonna add in my brown sugar and get that going as well. Never scrape too much, and always make sure you scrape down. Anything that's stuck inside of our attachment, make sure you get that out. Cool. All right, so now that we have creamed all of our sugars together with our butter and some of that lemon zest, we're going to emulsify in our eggs. So we're going to add them one at a time. I've already cracked all of them. This is the best way to do it. And so pretty much you're just going to eye it by trying to get one yolk in at a time. I've also added my vanilla to this mixture as well. So started on low. Okay. It is important that you do one egg at a time. If you don't, it won't emulsify and it won't hold together. And then your end result is going to be really chunky and weird, a weird texture, and it can also alter the flavor. Okay. Once that egg has disappeared, go ahead, add in another. All right, and then last egg in. So you guys can see the mixture has changed. It's no longer like a dough clump. It's kind of loosened up a little bit. And go ahead and scrape that again. Okay. Now that that's all come together, we're going to add in our dry ingredient. So this consists of all-purpose flour. We've got some nutmeg, allspice, ground clove, cinnamon, baking soda, and some salt. I would not add all this at once. You don't want your flour to kind of splash everywhere. So a little bit in at a time. Start low. At this point, you should smell all of those wonderful spices. All right, I'm gonna add in my apples and the lemon juice now. Make sure you guys squeeze as much of the juice out of the apples that you can. Otherwise, the cake will end up being way too moist. It'll fall apart and not stay together. All right, so as you guys can see, it's a little bit thicker than some cake batters, so it's not gonna really pour out for you, so you're gonna have to scrape. Take your spatula, or if you have an offset spatula, and just kind of spread it around so it's in the pan evenly. All right, if you can, since this is a thicker batter, try to push to the edges. And then, there you go. And you stick it in the oven. Our oven temp is 325 degrees, which is why it's gonna take a little bit longer to bake than most cakes do. So what you wanna do is put this on heat. You're trying to melt that butter as well as the sugar. You want the sugar to completely disappear to the point where you can't see it anymore. And you're gonna kind of let it bubble just a little bit. Remember, heavy cream has a lot of fat in it. So if it starts to boil, that means that your cream is going to start to burn and scorch to the bottom. So that means your heat is too high. So we're looking for a medium to a medium-high heat until we start to see some of those bubbles form. It should turn into a nice brown sauce that's very pourable. We're looking for this to be a smooth brown color. It should be very similar to that of a caramel. It's not going to be as sticky, but that's what we're working with. Because really, this is a form of caramel, but we're using brown sugar instead of granulated sugar. So we're looking for that same consistency that you guys are used to seeing with caramel, whether it's the sauce or the candy. All right, that butter is going to give it a nice sheen. All right, so we now have our 8-inch round that is done baking. I think last time we talked about the 10-inch. That one took a little bit longer. So this one's cooled down a little bit. I went through the edges. It's kind of, as it cooled down, it's separated from the pan, but I still tried to scrape. So fingers crossed that when I flip this onto the plate that it actually works. So let's see what we've got. All right. Okay, that's a good sound. Oh, look at that. That is a thing of beauty right there. All right, so, I mean, at this point, everything's pretty much done. All you gotta do is, put your toppings on, so that's what we're gonna do. We've got our toasted walnuts. Remember, you only wanna toast these for, a handful of minutes. All right, sprinkle those however you want. And then you take your glaze, you can spoon it on or pour it on. We're gonna pour a little bit. All right, and then since we didn't spoon it, we can kind of take our offset, kind of push it out so it kind of runs down the edges. And then you just cut and serve. Enjoy.
Este año doy gracias por más tiempo en casa con mi perro. This year, I'm thankful for more time at home with my dog.
Hey Patriots, Mr. P here. I'm thankful for the coffee that warms my tummy, the wood stove that warms my feet, and all of you, my students and colleagues, who warm my heart. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the break.
That's it for this week. Hope everybody has a fantastic and safe break.